Most tourists bring home souvenirs. These Americans brought home criminal records and lifetime bans. We are tracking 101 absolute disasters where entitlement slammed into reality. 1. Let us start with the ultimate ego check in Tokyo. An American tourist left a massive tip at a sushi bar, expecting the staff to bow in gratitude. Instead, the waiter sprinted 3 blocks to return the cash, assuming the guy was just incredibly bad at basic math. 2. Think your camouflage cargo shorts are a basic human right. Tell that to the authorities in Barbados. One loudmouth tourist got off his cruise ship looking like a military commando. Local police promptly confiscated his pants, fined him heavily, and made him walk back in his underwear. 3. Here is a wild concept for you. Other countries have their own money. A furious Ohio woman actually screamed at a rural French baker because he refused her crisp $20 bill. She demanded her constitutional right to a croissant and stormed out with nothing but a bruised ego. 4. Museums in Vienna are not interactive playgrounds for bored tourists. A curious visitor decided to test the texture of a priceless oil painting with his greasy fingers. The security alarm screamed instantly, and guards swarmed him before he could argue that his expensive ticket included tactile rights. 5. Never ever insult an Italian chef in Rome. One genius actually sent back a plate of authentic handmade pasta because it did not taste like his beloved Olive Garden breadstick combo. The furious owner marched out and publicly shamed him in rapid-fire Italian, while the whole restaurant clapped. 6. Sure, you can haggle at a street market. But doing it at a massive corporate supermarket in London? A tourist from Texas spent 10 minutes arguing with a terrified teenage cashier over the price of a frozen pizza. Security dragged him out while he yelled about the free market. 7. Booking a 14th century castle in France and complaining about the lack of central air conditioning is peak entitlement. One angry family demanded a full refund because their room was not 60 degrees in mid-July. The clerk handed them a paper fan. Enjoy your authentic medieval misery. 8. Do not treat heavily armed soldiers like Disney World mascots. A woman grabbed a royal guard by his pristine uniform just to get the perfect social media selfie. She received a terrifying, eardrum-shattering scream straight to the face, dropped her phone, and ran away crying like a toddler. 9. Rent a car in Scotland, but please remember the actual rules. An American driver leaned out his window to scream at locals for driving on the wrong side of the road. He genuinely threatened to call the cops on them, completely ignoring that he was the actual lethal hazard. 10. The entire country of Italy basically shuts down in August. But one furious traveler left scathing reviews for an entire Roman neighborhood because nobody stayed behind to serve her. Newsflash to that lady. The whole world does not put its life on hold just for your summer vacation. 11. Do you know what causes sheer panic in a German restaurant? An American aggressively shaking an empty soda glass demanding a free refill. A tourist literally yelled at a waiter about basic customer rights, completely unaware that bottomless drinks simply do not exist in Europe. You pay for every single drop. 12. Here is a brilliant strategy that never works: shouting English at a confused local. A guy in Tokyo got totally lost and just kept screaming his hotel name louder and slower at a terrified train conductor. Volume does not magically translate your words. It just makes you look like a massive jerk. 13. Imagine having a total public meltdown over a 50-cent coin. A tourist in Berlin practically kicked down a bathroom door because she refused to pay the attendant. She started screaming about human rights while a line of locals just stared in utter disbelief. Welcome to Europe, where nature calls have a toll. 14. Order pepperoni in Italy and see exactly what happens. A furious New Yorker slammed his fists on the table when his pizza arrived covered in bell peppers instead of cured meat. He demanded to see the chef, entirely clueless that pepperoni literally translates to bell peppers in Italian. Epic language fail. 15. Renting a massive luxury SUV to explore a medieval European village is pure logistical insanity. A guy from Texas wedged his giant truck completely stuck between 2 ancient stone buildings in Spain. He sat there humiliated, eventually paying thousands of euros for a specialized crane to literally lift his vehicle out. 16. Rules apply to everyone except you, right? One entitled traveler flat out refused to take off his dirty sneakers inside a sacred temple in Thailand. He loudly claimed the ancient marble floor was too cold for his bare feet. The local monks did not say a word. They just firmly escorted him out by his collar. 17. Nothing screams refined palate like asking for a side of Hidden Valley Ranch at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris. The waiter looked at the American as if he had just insulted his entire ancestry. The furious chef actually refused to serve the main course and politely asked the couple to leave immediately. 18. You fly down to Cancun and actually complain about the locals speaking Spanish? A woman literally left a 1-star review for her luxury resort because the staff dared to communicate in their native language. She genuinely felt oppressed that they did not cater exclusively to her high school level English. 19. Waving your precious Discover card at a tiny street vendor in rural Greece will get you absolutely nowhere. A guy threw a fit when the elderly owner asked for local cash. He proudly declared his plastic was accepted worldwide. The vendor just laughed and handed his gyro to the next hungry guy in line. 20. Ordering a beer in London and throwing a tantrum because it is not ice cold is a classic rookie move. A frat boy violently pushed his pint back across the bar, claiming it was totally spoiled. The bartender calmly explained that traditional cask ales are served at cellar temperature, not frozen solid. 21. Do not walk onto a Spanish beach if you are terrified of the human body. A conservative tourist practically called the local police because people were sunbathing topless. She loudly demanded everyone cover up to protect her morals. The locals just laughed and offered her some extra sunscreen instead. 22. How dare an ancient Roman ruin lack modern amenities? One furious reviewer gave the Colosseum 2 stars because it did not feature a convenient escalator. He complained heavily about the uneven stairs and lack of handrails. Yes, buddy, the gladiators really should have prioritized wheelchair accessibility. 23. Walking into a traditional espresso bar in Florence and ordering a venti-iced caramel macchiato with oat milk is a phenomenal insult. The barista stared blankly as an American teenager frantically showed a TikTok recipe on her phone. She was handed a single shot of black espresso and firmly told to leave. 24. Showing up for dinner at 6 in the evening in Madrid guarantees you will be eating completely alone. One family aggressively rattled the locked doors of a local tapas bar, assuming the owner was just being lazy. In Spain, the restaurant kitchens do not even start warming up until at least 9 at night. 25. Those cute monkeys in Bali are absolutely not your domestic pets. A confident tourist tried to hold a wild macaque for a viral video and immediately got his expensive sunglasses stolen. When he tried to fight the monkey to get them back, the entire primate squad chased him straight into a muddy river. 26. Packing your everyday allergy medicine for a trip to Tokyo sounds innocent enough. But Japan has insanely strict laws about basic stimulants. A businessman spent hours in customs getting interrogated over a regular nasal inhaler. He almost got deported for carrying what they consider a highly illegal substance. 27. Asking to box up your leftovers at a premium dining spot in Europe is a massive cultural faux pas. A guy in Italy asked for a doggy bag to take his half-eaten risotto back to his luxury hotel. The waiter acted like the man had just committed a major felony and simply threw the expensive plate into the trash. 28. Australia takes their unique coffee culture incredibly seriously. So when a tourist strolled into a Sydney cafe and loudly demanded a giant mug of weak American drip coffee, the barista literally scoffed. He handed the guy a tiny flat white and told him to go find a fast food joint if he wanted dirty bean water. 29. Trying to tip heavily in Iceland is basically an insult to their entire social structure. A generous traveler forcefully shoved a $20 bill into a waitress's hand, insisting she keep the change. She threw it right back onto his table, highly offended that he assumed her employer did not pay a living wage. 30. Demanding crispy pork bacon at a breakfast buffet in Dubai is a totally spectacular level of geographic ignorance. A guy slammed his fist on the counter, screaming that turkey bacon was an absolute scam. The hotel manager politely reminded him that he was standing right in the middle of a strict Muslim country. 31. Demanding a bottle of cheap ketchup to drown a premium piece of sushi in Tokyo is a culinary crime. A confident traveler aggressively waved down the chef, completely rejecting the fresh soy sauce. He was immediately asked to leave the establishment and never return to insult their generational craft. 32. Turning right on a red light is completely illegal in most of Europe. A frustrated tourist driving in Munich confidently merged into traffic, nearly flattening a cyclist. When the police pulled him over, he loudly quoted his home state traffic laws, earning himself a massive fine and a suspended rental agreement. 33. Who actually thinks hugging a stranger is a good idea in Finland? A highly energetic American threw her arms around a local tour guide as a greeting. The terrified Finnish man froze like a statue, completely unable to process this aggressive invasion of personal space, and silently walked away. 34. Smuggling a drone into Egypt for some epic vacation footage is a spectacularly bad idea. One guy completely ignored the strict national security warnings. Heavily armed airport guards seized his expensive toy immediately. He spent his first 2 days crying in a dusty interrogation room over a plastic helicopter. 35. Are you seriously asking for a vegan meat substitute at a traditional Argentine steakhouse? A demanding woman threw a total fit when the waiter brought her a simple salad. She aggressively lectured the confused staff about plant-based diets while an entire room of locals happily devoured massive slabs of beef. 36. Slapping down a fat stack of American $1 bills does not make you a big spender in London. A tourist tried to buy a round of drinks by making it rain with foreign currency. The bartender stared at the crumpled green paper, handed it right back, and pointed directly to the card machine. 37. Wandering the halls of a historic Venetian hotel at midnight looking for a giant ice machine is totally pointless. A furious guy in his pajamas actually called the front desk to complain about the missing amenity. The sleepy receptionist politely informed him that Europeans do not freeze their internal organs. 38. Swiss trains are basically rolling quiet zones. So when a loud tourist decided to take a video call on speakerphone, the atmosphere turned deadly. An entire carriage of perfectly polite citizens simultaneously turned around and violently shushed him until he sank into his seat in absolute humiliation. 39. Stealing beautiful pink sand from a protected beach in Sardinia is not a cute souvenir idea. A woman proudly packed 2 massive jars into her checked luggage. Italian customs agents absolutely ruined her life at the airport, hitting her with a €3,000 fine for environmental theft. 40. Nothing screams arrogance quite like tipping an Australian bartender with heavy handfuls of leftover American coins. A frat guy dumped his pocket change on the bar, thinking he was being incredibly generous. The bartender aggressively swept the worthless metal straight into the trash without breaking eye contact. 41. Banging on the locked glass doors of a German supermarket on a Sunday morning will not magically open them. A hungry traveler aggressively rattled the handles, assuming the staff was just sleeping in. Newsflash to the genius. The entire country legally shuts down for a mandated day of rest. 42. Here is a cardinal sin of Italian dining that you must avoid. A tourist aggressively demanded grated Parmesan cheese for his seafood linguine. The waiter physically pulled the cheese grater away, refusing to let the clueless man commit a culinary crime that ruins the delicate flavor of the fresh clams. 43. Do you really think a physical wholesale club membership card counts as legal identification in a Parisian nightclub? A grown man violently argued with a massive bouncer, claiming his shopping status proved his age. The guard laughed so hard, he actually let the guy skip the line just out of pure pity. 44. Standing firmly on the left side of a London subway escalator is a guaranteed death wish. A clueless tourist blocked an entire rushing army of morning commuters. The collective tidal wave of aggressive sighs and angry shoving nearly pushed the terrified guy completely over the metal railing. 45. Ordering free tap water in Germany always ends in a bitter disappointment. A thirsty guy took a massive gulp, instantly choking because the local standard is heavily carbonated mineral water. He furiously accused the waiter of poisoning him, entirely unaware that still water actually costs extra money. 46. Treating an official Amsterdam train station ticket window like a cheap flea market is beyond embarrassing. A confident businessman loudly tried to haggle the price of a transit pass down by €5. The totally deadpan clerk just closed the security blind right in his arrogant face. 47. Renting a manual transmission car in Ireland to save $50 is a terrible idea if you only drive automatic. A cocky tourist completely destroyed the clutch before even leaving the airport parking lot. He spent his entire vacation budget paying for the massive repair bill and crying in the lobby. 48. Walking around Paris with a giant paper coffee cup is not the fashion statement you think it is. A woman threw a massive tantrum when a classic cafe refused to make her drink to go. The waiter literally forced her to sit down at a tiny table and drink from a real ceramic cup like a civilized human being. 49. Wandering into a traditional family grocery store in southern Italy wearing absolutely nothing but a tiny string bikini is highly illegal. An old man literally chased a screaming tourist out of his shop with a wooden broom. You are not at a private beach resort anymore. Put some actual clothes on. 50. Have you ever accused a Canadian gas station of running a massive financial scam? A furious driver violently screamed at an attendant because the fuel price looked incredibly low. He totally forgot that the entire rest of the civilized world measures liquids in liters, not massive oversized gallons. 51. Texas residents love their personal self-defense tools. But one confident tourist proudly showed her pink pepper spray to a London police officer, genuinely asking if it was allowed. She was instantly arrested for possessing a banned weapon and spent her luxury vacation sitting in a cold British jail cell. 52. Why would a British hotel celebrate an American holiday? An angry father literally cornered the manager, demanding to know where the traditional Thanksgiving turkey was hiding. The extremely polite staff had to remind this genius that England generally does not celebrate the day you successfully rebelled against them. 53. Do not mess with the king's personal property. A confident traveler chased down a massive swan near Windsor Castle just to get a cool selfie. That incredibly aggressive bird violently battered the guy with its heavy wings while laughing locals recorded his highly embarrassing royal beatdown for the internet. 54. Weather apps will completely betray you if you ignore basic science. A freezing family stepped out of the Sydney airport expecting an absolute blizzard because their phone said 20 degrees. It was actually nearly 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Enjoy sweating through your incredibly expensive winter parkas. You absolute geniuses. 55. That extra porcelain bowl in your European bathroom is absolutely not a drinking fountain. A thirsty tourist took a massive gulp from the bidet, then aggressively complained to the front desk about the funny-tasting tap water. The receptionist almost passed out from laughing straight in his face. 56. French chefs do not care about your personal hunger schedule. A traveler violently pounded on a locked bistro door at 3 in the afternoon, demanding a hot meal. The furious owner leaned out a window and tossed a stale baguette at his head. Kitchens close at 2. Learn the local rules. 57. The British queue is an unbreakable sacred institution. One rude tourist completely bypassed 30 people waiting for a bus, loudly claiming he was in a massive hurry. The entire crowd formed a solid human wall, physically forcing him to the absolute back of the line in terrifying dead silence. 58. Table manners in Japan have serious spiritual meaning. A hungry traveler stuck his chopsticks vertically straight up into his rice bowl while chatting. The entire table went silent because he had just performed a funeral ritual meant exclusively for offering food to the dead spirits. 59. Geography is clearly not taught in college anymore. An angry student violently argued with his waiter in Seville, claiming that Spain actually invented Mexican food and demanding loaded beef nachos. The highly offended bartender handed the idiot a bowl of plain potato chips and completely ignored him. 60. Tipping a friendly waiter is nice, but handing cash to a foreign police officer is a catastrophic mistake. A driver in Switzerland got pulled over for speeding and tried to subtly slip a $20 bill with his license. He was immediately ripped from his rental vehicle for attempted bribery. 61. Freedom of speech has totally different limits in Asia. A clueless frat boy dramatically posed and openly mocked a massive street poster of the Thai king. 4 undercover officers instantly grabbed him by the collar, ensuring he immediately regretted his disrespect toward the monarchy. 62. Nobody wants your giant American currency for a 50-cent transaction. A frustrated street vendor in Vietnam just stared at a crisp $100 bill, aggressively shoved the hot coffee into the tourist's hands, and shooed him away. She simply did not have time for his totally oblivious financial nonsense. 63. Math is hard, especially on the German Autobahn. A frantic tourist called his rental company crying, convinced his tiny car was broken because the dashboard clearly said 100. The dispatcher sighed, explaining that 60 miles an hour is painfully slow when everyone else is flying by in kilometers. 64. Silence is golden on a Japanese bullet train. A loud businessman was aggressively yelling about his stock portfolio on speakerphone while hundreds of local commuters stared absolute daggers at him. The train conductor literally confiscated his device until he reached his final destination, treating him like a toddler. 65. Traditional Viennese coffee houses are historical monuments, not cheap corner diners. A thirsty American violently slammed his empty cup on a marble table, demanding a free refill of dirty drip coffee. The tuxedo-clad waiter coldly handed him the final bill and pointed directly toward the exit door. 66. Hiking in the Swiss Alps requires actual travel insurance. A guy got stuck on a mountain ledge wearing sneakers and called for a helicopter rescue. He was totally shocked when they handed him a bill for $20,000 because emergency services are definitely not free for negligent tourists there. 67. Renting a medieval villa sounds incredibly romantic until you try to park a massive luxury vehicle. A furious driver spent 3 hours completely wedged between 2 ancient brick walls, screaming at the locals for building their streets too small. Nobody offered to help him, they just stood around taking pictures. 68. European waiters will never bring the check until you specifically ask for it. A couple sat in a French bistro for 3 hours, getting angrier by the minute because the server ignored them. They eventually stormed up to the register, realizing they had wasted their entire evening waiting for a piece of paper. 69. You will absolutely obey the little red walking man in Switzerland. A confident New Yorker strutted across a completely empty intersection, thinking he was street smart. A hidden police officer stepped out of the shadows and slapped him with a massive 100-franc fine right on the spot. Rules are actual rules here. 70. Quality always beats massive stomach-stretching portions in France. A loud tourist took one look at his delicate duck confit and actually asked the chef where the rest of the meal was hidden. He demanded a massive side of French fries, completely insulting the entire culinary staff in the process. 71. The continent of Europe is not just one giant theme park. A clueless family boarded a train from London to Paris and confidently handed the official border agent their wholesale club membership cards. They were instantly rejected, deeply confused that independent countries still require actual government passports. 72. Brightly colored doors in Dublin do not automatically mean you are entering a public pub. A drunken tourist barged straight into a private family living room, loudly demanding a cold pint of Guinness. A highly terrified Irish grandmother chased him right back into the street with a heavy metal fire poker. 73. Outdoor shoes are the ultimate enemy of pristine Japanese tatami mats. A stubborn traveler completely ignored the giant pile of slippers at the door, loudly claiming his heavy boots were perfectly clean. The furious hotel owner canceled his expensive reservation immediately and kicked him out onto the street. 74. Small talk is basically a psychological weapon in Scandinavia. A bubbly American tried to strike up a totally casual conversation at a quiet, snowy bus stop in Sweden. The panicked local literally pretended to be completely deaf, just to avoid engaging with this terrifyingly loud and overly friendly extrovert. 75. Respect the broth or face the wrath of the chef. A tourist in Tokyo practically emptied a massive bottle of cheap chili sauce into his premium ramen before even tasting it. The highly offended cook marched over, snatched the expensive bowl away, and refused to let the idiot ruin 12 hours of hard work. 76. You cannot just substitute half the ingredients on a menu in Paris. A picky eater confidently told the waiter to remove the butter, swap the cheese, and add extra ranch. The chef personally marched out, tore up the order ticket, and aggressively pointed to the nearest fast food joint. 77. Never touch a stranger's child in Thailand, even if you think you are being super friendly. A tourist patted a cute toddler directly on the head, completely unaware that this is a massive spiritual insult in Buddhist culture. The furious parents screamed at him until he fled the market. 78. Separate checks for a massive group of 12 is an absolute nightmare in a Spanish tapas bar. A furious tourist demanded an itemized receipt for every single potato wedge they shared. The waiter just wrote one giant number directly on the paper tablecloth and walked away in pure disgust. 79. Over-the-counter antibiotics are absolutely not a global human right. A traveler threw a massive fit in a London pharmacy when the clerk refused to hand over strong prescription medication for a tiny cough. He literally threatened to sue the entirely confused pharmacist for violating his medical freedom. 80. Who genuinely expects a pristine medieval cathedral to have a modern elevator? An angry senior citizen left a highly negative review of a 12th century church in Germany because climbing the ancient stone tower made his legs hurt. He actually suggested they install escalators to respect paying American tourists. 81. The customer is certainly not always right in France. A loud shopper snapped her fingers at a retail worker in a high-end boutique, expecting immediate subservience. The extremely fashionable clerk slowly looked her up and down, laughed out loud, and simply walked straight back into the storage room. 82. Dropping a massive €500 bill for a tiny €2 pastry is the fastest way to make enemies in Portugal. An arrogant tourist refused to use small change, thinking he looked incredibly rich. The elderly baker violently cursed him out and literally threw the heavy banknote back. 83. Are you really wearing a tiny bikini into a sacred Italian basilica? One deeply oblivious traveler completely bypassed the dress code signs and strolled toward the ancient altar in bright swimwear. An absolutely furious priest aggressively blocked her path and forced her to wear a humiliating cheap paper poncho. 84. Math is tricky, but dates are harder. A confused traveler arrived at his non-refundable hotel a full month early because he booked for the 10th of November instead of October 11th. He completely forgot that the rest of the world puts the day before the month on the calendar. 85. Flashing a concealed carry weapons permit as legal identification in a European airport is pure stupidity. A confident Texan proudly handed his domestic gun license to a British customs agent. He was instantly pulled into a terrifying windowless security room and aggressively interrogated for 6 highly miserable hours. 86. Do not ever complain to the local tourism board that the actual Atlantic Ocean is too cold. A ridiculous family actually demanded a partial refund on their coastal Ireland vacation because the seawater was not heated to resort pool standards. The government officials genuinely thought it was a prank. 87. Trying to order a 64-ounce mega soda in Europe will just get you weird looks. A thirsty tourist completely lost his mind when a French cinema handed him their absolute biggest cup, which was basically the size of an American small. He accused them of literally starving their customers. 88. Showing up at a Spanish boutique at 3 in the afternoon and rattling the locked gates is totally useless. An angry shopper screamed that the owners were incredibly lazy for randomly taking a nap. She entirely missed the point of a cultural siesta and just looked like a total maniac. 89. Smiling aggressively at random strangers on a commuter train in Russia will get you in serious trouble. A super-friendly traveler kept intensely grinning at everyone in the quiet carriage. 2 transit police officers pulled him aside, genuinely suspecting he was heavily intoxicated or planning a highly violent crime. 90. Demanding extra heavy cream for your delicate afternoon tea in London is a total cultural disgrace. A tourist violently stirred massive clumps of dairy into his expensive Earl Grey, turning it into a pale, thick soup. The disgusted waiter actually apologized to the teapot for the horrific American abuse. 91. You cannot just grab a completely empty table at a packed Parisian cafe without asking a hostess. An entitled couple pushed past the massive outdoor line and sat themselves directly on the patio. The absolutely merciless waiter completely ignored their entire existence for 2 solid hours until they left. 92. Throwing a massive tantrum over a perfectly cooked pink burger in Germany is highly embarrassing. A guy sent his expensive beef back to the kitchen, claiming it was completely raw and totally poisonous. The chef walked out and forcefully explained the actual difference between high-quality meat and fast food. 93. Handing a European bartender a shiny metal credit card for a single pint of cheap beer is incredibly annoying. A guy tried to pay for his €3 drink with plastic, entirely ignoring the giant cash-only sign. The bartender sarcastically offered to let him wash dishes to cover the massive debt. 94. How do you actually get a speeding ticket on a bicycle? An American rented a heavy city bike in Amsterdam and aggressively blew past 3 red lights while filming a travel vlog. A Dutch police officer on a specialized Interceptor bicycle easily chased him down and handed him a massive fine. 95. Asking the front desk to turn off the morning church bells in Rome is the absolute height of pure arrogance. A sleepy tourist furiously called the hotel manager at 7 in the morning, demanding they completely silence the Vatican. He was politely informed that the Pope does not take noise complaints. 96. You absolutely cannot order a classic frozen margarita at an authentic rural Irish pub. A thirsty college student demanded a blended tequila cocktail from a grizzled bartender in Galway. The old man silently poured him a heavy shot of local whiskey, slid it across the sticky bar, and walked away entirely. 97. Bargaining over the price of a standard public train ticket in Switzerland is entirely pointless. A businessman loudly tried to negotiate a first-class fare down by a solid 20%. The completely unamused clerk printed the ticket at full price, slid it under the glass, and shouted next in line. 98. Expecting an ancient Greek archaeological site to have massive public restrooms every 100 feet is completely insane. A furious woman actually demanded they instantly build more toilets directly near the Parthenon. She was utterly shocked to learn that preserving ancient history is slightly more important than her tiny bladder. 99. Complaining that the completely free breadbasket in Portugal actually costs money is a classic rookie error. A tourist aggressively ate 5 plates of olives and cheese, assuming it was a complimentary appetizer. When the massive bill arrived, he threatened to call the local authorities over basic table charges. 100. Never demand to speak to the absolute highest manager of a massive global landmark. An incredibly angry tourist was so outraged by the long security lines at the Eiffel Tower that she demanded a private VIP tour as compensation. The highly amused security guards literally laughed her entirely out of the plaza. 101. The ultimate geographic fail happened right in the middle of historic Venice. A furious traveler aggressively demanded to know why his luxury Uber black car had not arrived at his hotel yet. The local concierge had to slowly explain that the entire city is built on water, so cars literally do not exist there. Be honest, is the rest of the world just too sensitive and stuck in the dark ages, or are Americans genuinely the most annoying people on the planet? Fight it out in the comments. If you actually possess common sense, destroy the like button and subscribe for more global reality checks.